All right, so let's make a formal introduction for our listeners. Good afternoon, Claire. My name is Claudio. I'm calling you from Washington, D.C. From the studios in Fairfax City, we're very humble and grateful that Claire Hamill accepted our invitation to our show. Claire, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Claudia. It's nice to be here.
Thank you very much. The last 2 years have been very difficult with the COVID, with the pandemic, and if you're a touring musician, you couldn't tour, you couldn't go out that much. How the COVID affected you, your sanity, your life? How you holding up?
Well, it affected me in fundamental ways, in as much as my mother died just before lockdown happened. She died the 11th of March, and we went into lockdown before her funeral. So she didn't get a funeral; she just got a burial in the ground. I wasn't able to go because she lived at the other end of the country. And it was traumatic, really. Yeah, it was, along with a lot of other people. I kind of went into I channeled grief into love, into a fantasy love affair with somebody I was attracted to. And armed with copious amounts of red wine, I wrote an album of love songs. So, and the funny thing was my mother had always believed in my talent and always told me, "Oh, you're such a good songwriter. You should." And it's almost like it was a parting gift from her to me, for me to sit down and close the doors and just outpour my heart into a project of music. So it was start to finish. Lockdown. The album was a complete lockdown song. There are no songs on the album that weren't written during lockdown. So it was a good thing that came out of it, but it was a very tragic beginning for me. But we came through it, we came through it. Yeah.
Yeah, it has been difficult, as you know, here people in the United States, 1 million folks die and people over the world as well. So we are very lucky and fortunate to be alive, man.
Yes, we are. I mean, my mother was elderly. She'd had dementia for 3-4 years. So, my brother kept her alive. He kept feeding. She lived in a home.
Yeah.
And my brother used to go and visit her every evening and take a mashed banana and cream and feed it to her. So he literally kept her alive. I mean, she would have died sooner than that, I think, really. So she was ready to go, but it's still a big event in your life that you're not really prepared for. And the problem is, being locked down, you can't be comforted by anybody. I mean, my children weren't allowed to come and see me. It was terrible for them. And now it was a 2-year weirdness that people still refer to it. We still remark on what happened to us during those 2 years, and we are definitely feeling the effects of it, nationally, financially, the changes that we've had to go through, the whole world. It's been quite astonishing. And we're not really, I don't think we're quite aware of everything that was behind it and whether it was part of some sort of plan to see how much control people could get over us. We're not quite sure, are we, really, on what might have been behind it. We'll have to see in the course of time. But at least I got an album with songs out of it, so that was good.
Good for you. Let's go back to the beginning. Were you born like in a musical family? I mean, how old were you when you perhaps began taking piano lessons or guitar lessons? Or
I did take a few piano lessons when I was young. My teacher recommended to my mother that I was musically gifted. And I think being able to sing very easily, pick up things very quickly in school, in learning songs and everything. And but I came from quite a poor family, so there wasn't really enough money for me to do any of those sort of things. But what happened was I borrowed a guitar from school and started teaching myself to play. And then my mother bought me a guitar from a shop. We used to call them pawn shops, where you pawn things and get money, and then you go back and buy them back. And she got me a little guitar. It was £3.50.
Wow.
And I used to take that guitar to school. So that was when I was 12. I learned to play guitar. And that was my hobby. I used to come home from school and sit in the front room in the dark, playing my guitar, gazing out the window. And I was obsessed with it, really. And then I started writing little songs from then on.
Amazing, yeah.
But my family all sang. My grandmother played the piano, and everybody sang, and I learned how to harmonise, listening to my mum and my aunties and my grandma singing. Yeah, parties were fantastic affairs in my grandmother's house mainly. And I had an auntie that had the most beautiful voice, and she threw parties as well. And as I got older, I was allowed to go, and sometimes even sing a song. Josephine, that's my first name. Josephine Claire Hamill, that's my full name. So, yeah, I used to contribute to the family sing songs.
Good for you.
Yeah, I remember them. Yeah, it was great fun. Yeah.
Were you in a band when you were in the equivalent of high school here, when you're 15, 16, were you playing with other kids, or you want to kind of be on your own and write your own things and do your own?
I was on my own mainly because I went to a girls' school. Had I gone to a mixed school or a comprehensive as we have now, then I probably would have been in a band, because I would have been meeting more lads, more boys that were playing guitar and drums and things like that. But in my school, it was a Catholic grammar school. It was quite academic, really, but they were very encouraging. And we used to have little competitions, music competitions, and everything was encouraged artistically in my school. But there were very. In fact, I was one of the only girls that played guitar, so I stood out really. Going back to the 1960s, it's quite a long time ago. I was born in 1954, so 1966 I would be 12, which is when I started playing guitar. So the late 1960s in my school, it was a great time actually. Just going into the 1970s, the country was booming, and it was a very exciting time, very progressive time. Music was it was a very creative world. It wasn't until the early 1973 with the oil crisis that changed everything. Yeah. It changed everything in the Western world. Yeah.
And then eventually, you turn 16, 17, you were ready to finish high school. You needed to, on one hand, you were kind of gifted musically, right? And and you needed in many ways to pursue your passion. It was there in your family to go to college, married, forget about music. You're not going to make any money. It's kind of crazy life. Find a nice boy, form a family, and all the things, or encouragement at home to do whatever you make you happier.
It was, my parents had broken up, and my dad had gone to live in Canada when I was 12. My mom had gone back to work. She'd been a typist, so she got a job in a Monsanto chemical business, huge factory on the outskirts of town. And she went into the purchasing department and did some early, weirdly enough, she input a lot of information into mainframe computers in the very early days of computers. Nobody else wanted to do it. but she needed the money. She had a young family to support, so she offered to do that. And she kept us, really. So it was very free. My mother was a very free-thinking person. I wanted to go to drama school. She realized that I think all of us children were spirited, and it wasn't a case of being able to control any of us, really. We all wanted to get away from Teesside, where we lived, pretty much. And I certainly did. I was the eldest, so I had to fly. I had to fly the nest, because the eldest always does. You know, they always feel that they must move, because there are all these other younger ones behind you. You've got to give them some room, you know. So when I got a recording contract, I was still in school. I'd intended to go to drama college, and I wanted to be an actor, because I got the bug when I was young. And singing and writing songs was just a hobby for me. It was just something that came easy. I could remember words of songs. So it was an easy thing for me to do. But I thought acting was serious. You know, that was going to stretch me. But I got a recording contract because I was just there at the right time. Joni Mitchell was becoming very successful, and there weren't any other girls around. So I walked up to a manager of a club and said, "Can I play here?" And he said, "Well, what do you do?" I said, "Well, I play guitar and I write songs." And he said, "Yeah, okay, you can come and play on Friday." So that's how I started.
Well, you were very young. You were like 17 or something, right?
I was 17 when my album came out, but I was 16 when I got my contract.
My God.
I was still at school. I hadn't even finished my A-levels. I was in the first year of my A-levels.
Yeah.
Which is, you do 2 years, and then you go to university. But yeah, I'm instead of attending university, I toured them and played my guitar in all of them, you know. So I was playing to my contemporaries. It was really sweet. All the boys had long hair and beards, and it was a wonderful time. The early 70s. Yeah, it was a wonderful time. It was really fun. University was fun. Everybody was drinking beer, and the world was it was booming. It was booming. It was so full of positivity. It was a wonderful time.
Good for you. Was it kind of personal question? Because we live in a male-dominated world, right? So in the 70s, when you started, was harder because you were a young, attractive lady, and that people wouldn't take you seriously, or well, I mean, I imagine that for Blondie and then Pat Bennett, Joni Mitchell, yourself, and many other. I imagine that the world was harder because, in a way, guys or club owners and owner of record label wouldn't take you seriously because you were a female, right? So I don't know if I'm asking the right question now, but I imagine that was harder.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It was very much a man's world.
Yeah.
There was a lot of sexism, and a lot of predatory behaviour, which I succumbed to like any young woman, especially as I was incredibly naive. But you know, that was the way the world was. Women in those days, I mean, I share my stories with other women of my age, and we just sort of accepted a lot of unwanted sexual attention from men as being part of the course. I mean, but the upside was, you know, being wolf whistled at. I loved it, and I think it's, you know, it's a shame that that men can't appreciate your beauty. We don't often appreciate our own beauty. I don't think I felt beautiful, but if I got wolf whistled at, I felt beautiful for a few minutes, and I thought that was lovely. I had one particular outfit. I remember I knew a sculptor, and he found a box of 1950s little shorts and bustier tops. And he said, "Do you like these?" I said, "Oh yeah, they're fantastic." And I wore them walking down the high street in Harleston. I think I was living at the time in London. And I got 9 wolf whistles that day. I counted 9. And I just went, wow, you know. That was a fantastic day. I loved it. I loved it. I mean, you know, male attention is great. You can see girls today, they still want male attention. Otherwise, they wouldn't dress the way that they do. But I grew up with boys. I've got 4 younger brothers. So I always felt very at home around boys and men. And the unwanted bits were just part of your life that you accepted. Of course, if and when it gets, you know, to a very dangerous stage, well, that's not acceptable at all. But a few wolf whistles and the odd pinch on the bum, you know, I think we can live with all of that. Really, well, I could. Women of my age did.
I read somewhere that early in your life you were many ways compared to Joni Mitchell. That's such an honor, you know.
Oh, absolutely. In no way was I anywhere as good as Joni Mitchell. I think she's just absolutely amazing. I don't think I ever have been. I don't think my music compares to hers. I think hers is more poetically deep, and I've got my own style. It's kind of sentimental. It's a little bit plainer, but I think I've done some good work. You know, there's no doubt about it. I've written some good songs. There's a whole catalogue of music now. So 50 years worth of music. So you're bound to find some gems in there. And I'm lucky that, unlike Joni, I've managed to hold on to, you know, my vocal sound in a better way. But then I gave up smoking a long time ago, and I think possibly she carried on. Or maybe it's just the way, you know, she aged, her voice aged. Maybe she'd worked it a bit more than I did, because I haven't done a great deal of live work in the last few years. And I think actually if you do a lot of live work, it does damage your voice somewhat if you're not very careful. But yes, she's wonderful. Joni Mitchell, oh my goodness, I've written a song called Just Like Joni Mitchell, one of my funny songs. You know, I had long hair and I played guitar just like Joni Mitchell. I made a record and I went on the road just like Joni Mitchell. And I sang about war, and I sang about love, and I sang about the weather a bit. But unlike Joni Mitchell, I never had a hit. That's one of my
good for you, man.
Yeah.
So your first album, the One House Left Standing.
Yeah.
You began touring the UK, right? Supporting, I think, John Martin.
Yes, John Martin.
Free to elaborate on that. And then you end up performing at Concertine, a festival in the United States in 1972 before a crowd of 200,000 people. I mean,
that was incredible.
I know you have played with a lot of very famous people, but you know, from Catholic school, you know, a young girl, attractive lady, 17, and eventually 2 years down the road from there, your own album, playing in front of a lot of people. It's like a miracle in many ways, you know?
It's unbelievable. I look at the poster of the people that were on that festival. I just can't believe my name is on there. It's just incredible. Yeah, but it was just, you know, girl singer-songwriters were such a rare thing in those days. They just were. And so, you know, and I guess I was just there at the right time. And maybe it was to introduce something different into the festival repertoire, you know, something girly, something sweet. yeah, it was wonderful. Yeah, I'm so thrilled. I've been so lucky. I really have. I think it's much harder now. I mean, my daughter, Susanna, my middle daughter, all my daughters sing. Not, but Susanna, my middle daughter, is an actor, singer, and it's much more difficult for her. She's got a better voice than I have, but I was just there at the right time, you know. She's just wonderful. She's got a very contemporary voice. It's very sweet, and she can do all the little curly bits that all the modern girls can do, which I don't. My voice is much plainer than that, more folky in a way.
Yeah.
But she's got lots of inflection. And every time I hear her sing, it makes me so angry that, you know, she doesn't do more with it really. But then maybe that's what people think of me sometimes, that I don't work hard enough and I don't give often enough and etc. Who knows? But yes, that was a wonderful thing to be part of that roster of amazing people. Yeah.
200,000, my God, man. Wow. How old were you at the time, at the festival?
I was 17 going on 18.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I was 17 going on 18. I'm sure it was that. Yeah.
Yeah, 17. I'm quite sure many guys wanted to ask you out and go out with you. You were famous. You were making money. I don't know.
I slept with an awful lot of men.
No, I don't.
An awful lot. Every Saturday was another one-night stand. I was a cosmopolitan girl. Cosmopolitan was all about having sex. All about going out there. You're just like the men. They can have sex with whoever they want to. You go out and explore your sexual body, and you know. I think it was very much expected of women in those days that we would be, you know, we would be very free and easy with our favors, and I was. Yeah. I mean, I might be able to put that down to the fact that I didn't have a father. He'd left and gone to live in Canada, so he wasn't there to protect me. And I think now the research is that if you have a protective father, you're much less likely to be promiscuous. Yeah. And I think in my case that bears it up. But also I think, you know, women of my age in that era, in the early 70s, we were being encouraged to have as much sex as we could possibly have. How things have changed.
Yes, yeah.
And now I'm very protective.
That's good. Yeah.
And I'm not nearly having as much sex as I should be having. But I mean, we all should be having lots of sex, of course, because it does make you feel good. But it's not the same world, is it really, when you're older? You're much more protective of your heart. Yeah. Because I mean, I had sex with people I was never going to be in love with and didn't mind, and it was quite fun. But now I can't do that anymore. No, I'm much more serious about it and more romantic, really. You know, quite right, and we should, I suppose.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. In 73, you end up touring United States with Procol Harum and Jethro Tull, and you know, feel free to elaborate on what was like. Those are big names, and then eventually King Crimson. I mean, you're talking about the best of the best. A young lady coming out of Catholic school, and then 3-4 years later, your world, I suppose, it was. I'm not a musician, like I said before, but it was turned upside down. I mean, those are the best bands at the time.
I know. Yes, I was incredibly lucky. I mean, I think perhaps signing to Island Records was the key to that. Yeah. Had I signed to EMI or Decca or anybody like that, I probably wouldn't have ended up touring and being, presented with all those amazing musicians and bands. But because I was with Island, and Island were a very trendy, hip label, and they had a lot of hip people on their label, I was able to tour with them. But I had good agents, I had good management. I just didn't write the music to set the world alight. perhaps because I was so young. Had I been an older, had I been maybe 27 or something like that, I'd be an older woman with a little bit more worldly experience and musical experience, and perhaps I might have made a bigger impression. But I was so young, and and cute, and a bit like, oh, isn't she sweet? But we don't take her music seriously because she's not even a proper adult yet. You know what I mean? So it wasn't. It was the time. It was an amazing time to be discovered, and I was lucky to be discovered and to have been presented in that way and have those opportunities. But I don't think I was sufficiently old and developed enough musically to have made an impression at the time when I was being given the push. You know what I mean? I had a great deal of money spent on me, but it didn't. My music didn't click with the great, with the wider public. So essentially, my career, from that big push, it didn't materialize, in the way that perhaps, I and my managers thought it might. But that's just life, isn't it? We have to deal with what life gives us and be grateful. And I am very, very grateful for how my life has turned out. I've managed to, marry and have some children and live in the country and travel the world and have nice friends and, life's been very good, really. And I've managed to carry on writing as well and fund my music as well, which has been quite interesting. Yeah.
Do you have like a good manager or touring manager that help you with your finances to negotiate a deal or to see how much you should charge?
Not anymore.
You're free to play in front of 100,000 people or whatever, no? Or
no, I don't have any management. I haven't had any management since my marriage broke up. I suppose my husband had been my manager, and then when I broke up with him, my children were quite small, and so I just really kind of moved nearby, and kind of, my world sort of closed in. I think because when your marriage ends, you're just licking your wounds somewhere. You're a wild animal. You want to cocoon yourself in a safe place and try and come to terms with what just happened to you, really. But I met somebody quite quickly, and he wanted to take me down a completely new route, a new genre of music, and I couldn't see a reason why not to go. So I did explore the world of dance music on an album that I made with my then new partner, Andrew Warren. And that was a genre of music that I didn't know anything about until I met him. And that was an interesting and exciting ride as well. Yeah, it was good. I like that album very much.
What memories do you have of playing with Jethro Tull, Procol Harum, King Crimson? You gotta have so many good stories to share with us here.
Well, I remember approaching the stadium. The opening night was in Ottawa of my very first North American tour.
Yeah.
And I remember just driving up to the stadium, and I'd never seen anything so big in all my life.
Yeah.
No, it was just incredible. So yes, the sound check. I did my sound check. I went into my dressing room, and Ian Anderson from Jethro Tull came in and said, "Hello, Claire. I'm Ian. Nice to meet you. Lovely to be working with you on tour. If there's anything you need, please just let me know." And I just, oh no, thank you, Ian. And he was just a proper gentleman. But the PA system did break down. I can't remember which show it was. It must have been Ottawa because I remember Toronto vividly. And I went and sat at the front of the stage with my legs hanging over with my guitar, unplugged the guitar, went to and just sang to the first few rows that could hear me until they fixed the PA system. And then, right, okay, Claire, we're ready to go now. You can get back on your stool. And then so I think I endeared myself to the management and the promoter for not just scurrying off stage and stamp my feet. I just sat down in front of the people and carried on singing to them, which was quite cute. Of course, nobody after 4 rows out, people could barely hear me. But so that was then, and then Toronto was weird because I knew my father was in Toronto because my uncle, his brother, was a district attorney, and that's one of the reasons my dad had moved to Canada because he had family there. So I was scared that he might be at the gig, and he did come to the gig and came backstage, and I hadn't seen him for 5 years, and no contact, no cards, no nothing. So it was very upsetting to see him again. And he left his business card with my manager. I just ran out of the room crying, basically. I was a 17-year-old abandoned child. And, I loved my father deeply. And it was terrible. I mean, 10 years later, when I was 27, I made it up with my father and we became close again. And, I had to understand his thinking in as much as he had to cut us off because he couldn't bear the idea that we were so far away from him and he couldn't see us. So he just went, no, that's it. I don't have any children. I'm not communicating with them because they don't exist anymore. And that was his way of coping, which, I came to understand and completely forgave him, of course, because you have to. But, there's always part of you. And I often say no man will ever hurt me as deeply as my father's abandonment of me. That's true. That's true. Maybe that's why my songs do, there is in some of them a sense of loss, but not in all of them. No, some of them are quite jolly. But, the sad songs are the best, aren't they, really?
Mm.
The ones where you explore.
I agree, yeah. I suppose if your family have been differently and then your parent was around, your dad was around, maybe your life would have turned out to be much, much different, I suppose, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. I think music is a channel for your feelings, all artists, really. Yeah. And so maybe my feelings of abandonment were channeled into music and into playing the guitar and being alone with and developing my singing and that sort of creative expression. Yeah. And it's continued to be. I feel very grateful that I can channel my feelings in a way and hopefully write those feelings and channel them on behalf of other people that can't, when they want to express how they feel, listening to a song sometimes. I mean, I get touched by other people's songs, definitely, no doubt about it. I know you said you don't like country music, but I was introduced to country music by a musician called Rick Gretsch, who'd worked with Eric Clapton in Blind Faith. And he was he wanted to be Graham Parsons and Emmylou Harris. So that's why he co-opted me. And we wrote some country music together. And I started listening to country. And I just listened to a country song the other night. I don't care if I'm your first. I don't care if I'm your first love. I just want to be your last. And it's a really corny, lovely country song.
Yeah.
about about meeting somebody in later life and falling in love and saying, oh, we've both known people before, but let's try and
Yeah.
you're going to be my last love. Yeah.
What happened at the time when I came to the United States, I didn't speak the language, so I couldn't understand the lyrics. So I liked the
Oh,
rhythm, the song, the changes from the guitar, the drums, but I didn't understand what they were saying because I didn't speak English. So that's why. So I focused at the time more into sort of electronic music, bands
yes,
like Tangerine Dream and Klaus Schulze and Manuel Goshen, where you listen to stuff, and then some
yes,
more rock and roll stuff, like I don't know, like the Genesis, the Pink Floyd, the Led Zeppelin, the King Crimson, whether it's less lyric but more music. So and
yes, yes,
then I learned the language. I understand. Oh man, I understand the lyrics. I don't understand the meaning. So it took me a while to understand. So when English or any other language is not your primary language, you 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 cannot have uh, the same understanding like you have because
yes,
you were born in the UK,
absolutely.
right? So
Yes,
that's what I
yes.
meant. But there it's good that there are different kind of music. It's good that people like this and that, right? Otherwise, would
Yes,
be a boring,
absolutely.
right? If everybody
Yeah,
like Italian food, then would not be a Chinese restaurant or a Japanese restaurant or whatever, right? So there is,
yeah,
but
absolutely. Yeah,
people here in the United States, the young kids like rap music and Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre and that kind of stuff, and they do very well. I mean, some of those folks are very very smart. They chose
oh, yeah,
music and
yes,
so way to do it, and have been very successful. So
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
it's
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
And then so in '73 you end up meeting Ray Davies of the Kings, and
Yes,
you sign. You were signed for that other record label at the time, right? And then
yes,
you
that's
end up
right.
touring America again for the second time, supporting
Yes,
Gilbert O'Sullivan. Wow, those are big names, man.
yeah. Jackson
You,
Brown.
you're
Yeah.
very humble, Claire.
Oh, my life has humbled me, Claudia. It's humbled me, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. I've had my diva moments, and they didn't work out too well. So I think being humble is a blessing, really is.
Yeah.
I still, I get such a great deal of enjoyment out of performing for anybody. And of course, I'd love to be better known. But then, I might have missed out on other things, on spending time with my family. I think, women who tour, I mean, look at Christine McVie. She didn't have any children. Neither did Stevie Nicks, did they? I don't think
No,
either of those women had children. And I would have hated to have missed out on my children. They've been the biggest and the best thing about my life. So I'm lucky that I've managed to have two great things, a career and my family. And I think that those things are important to a woman. Um, but in touring and in the music business, it would be a very hard thing to do. I remember taking my kids on tour with me when I did after I'd done Voices. I toured with my first baby when she was 6 months old, and that was tough. I did I supported Rick Wakeman on tour
yeah,
in England, Scotland. It was tough on all of us because I had to rehearse, and so when she was 4 months old, I started rehearsing. It was awful. It was awful, to be honest. It was way too early. Never should have done it.
yeah.
But later on, when I was promoting the Voices album, my New Age album, I had two children by then. I had Tara, my eldest, and Susanna, and a girl backing band. And we were touring in a van, and I made a bed in the back for the littlies to go in. I think there were about 4 and 2. And for every year after that, for about the next 4 years, they kept saying, "Are we going on tour this year, Mummy? Are we going on tour again?" And I went, no, we're not going on tour again. It wasn't so easy. It's not so easy to tour with your children unless you're a gypsy, and you're doing something like that. I think if you are, somebody that's doing festivals and you're living in a caravan permanently, then that would work. And even though I think that would be an idyllic life, it just it wasn't practical for me at the time. But I've forgotten what you asked me now. Oh, Ray Davies, that's right. Yes, I started working with Ray, and of course he's incredibly charismatic man, and great to be around. It was a fantastic opportunity to work with somebody amazing again. Yeah, really, really good. Yeah. I saw him after I left his label under a bit of a cloud, because it was that's right. I'd met Rick Gretsch, and he wanted me to go into country music, and Ray wanted me to do a single and not make another album. That's what happens to me. I'm not successful enough, and then the record label say, "Well, we want you to do a single, and if we can get the single away, then we'll make another album." At which point I go, "Oh, I don't want to do that. I want to make an album. I don't make singles." So the same thing happened with Ray. He wanted to make a single because Island Records had wanted to make a single instead of another album. I'd done 2 albums. They weren't that successful. And then my manager said, "Well, Ray wants to have a label. He'll make an album with you. Why not sign to him?" "Oh, okay." So I went to Ray. And then after 2 albums with Ray, let's make a single. But by then, punk music was happening. We were on the verge of punk music. It was going to be all over for me. And in fact, it was. Punk music wiped the floor with me because I was tender, sweet. My music was completely unfashionable, even though I was moving into a much more rocky sound, a much harder sound, because I'd been touring with rock bands and I was very much influenced by rock music and wanted to be Pat Benatar, who was the most famous, successful singer at the time. And I was going down that route, surrounded by rock musicians. My voice just wasn't good enough for rock music. It's not strong enough. I don't really have a rock voice, which I found out later when I joined Wishbone Ash and lost my voice. Well, I'd already lost my voice on tour in America when I put my first band together. That was something. The Americans had put a lot of ABC Records had signed the Conch catalogue, and I went out to America to promote Abracadabra, my 4th album. No, it wasn't. It was the Stage Door Johnny's album, the one that I'd done with Ray. That's right, because that's when I put my first band together. And after, I'll tell you a funny story. The drummer came to me one night and he said, "Claire," he said, "I don't suppose you've noticed, but the bass player's drunk on stage every night." And because I just didn't listen to what anybody else was doing, all I did was I wanted to play myself. It was all about me and me singing and playing the guitar, and you're all listening to what I'm doing. I'm not listening to what you're doing. So that night I listened to the band for the very first time, and my ears just, it just, something in my head opened, and I just went, "Oh my goodness, I can hear what everybody else is doing." And yes, the drummer's right, the bass player is drunk. So, that was funny. So then we had to replace him, poor guy. I mean, he was drunk because he was nervous. And, I've known a lot of musicians that need to have alcohol before they go on because of the nervousness, and it seems to relax them and everything. That was interesting. So after I had that first band, when I came back to England, I went, right, I want to produce my next album because I know exactly what to do now. I know about the music. I know about the musicians and what they're doing. I want to create the sound. And I was only 21. I was 21 and dictating to everybody how I wanted to produce my album. It was quite something. What a madam. What a little madam. And I didn't know anything about production. Really, I didn't. But luckily, I pulled a few good players in. Phil Palmer being one of them. Great guy. Yeah.
By the way, you need to write a book. You have so many stories.
I'm going to write a book. I know, I'm going to write a book because I was approached about, well, a long time ago. Let me think. It's got to be about 89 years ago, 10 years ago. Somebody approached me to write my life story.
Yeah.
And I went, no, I'll write it. You don't have to write it. I'll write it. And I did start. I wrote 65,000 words, actually. So I made a start.
Yeah.
But then it was a very personal recollection, and I realised that I read Martin Turner's book about Wishbone Ash. His book was very different. It was very much about the music, and I think I realised then that male fans like to know about the work, whereas your female fans like to know who you slept with, that sort of thing.
Really? Maybe the other way around? No?
Yeah, probably. Probably there is a bit of that. And I did say to somebody the other day, that I said, oh, yes, I'm going to write a kiss and tell. No, you're not. I said, well, yes. I said, why kiss them if you can't tell anyone about it?
Yeah.
So I will get down to getting back to it, and that is absolutely on my plate for the beginning of this next year.
Yeah.
My book.
I don't have one more adjustment one way or another. Just as I said before, I'm here to listen to whatever you wanna say. And actually, Phil Palmer recently finished his book, his autobiography, and he's going to be doing some book signing in different parts in the UK. And people in the UK are very different. I mean, not all of them, but in general, people in the UK are more quiet, humble. They keep it to themselves, naive to a certain extent, if I can use the word. Here in America, are very different. Folks are very different, And
it's not looked on highly if you over promote yourself. If you blow your own trumpet, the Brits don't like you to do that. They really don't. I mean, you get shot down. So, but that's the difference in America. America, they encourage you to blow your trumpet. They want to know about you. You're entitled to let the world know about you. And I mean, I'm coming round to that now because I think it's important that people do get to discover me. At least I try to help people discover me, rather than just sitting in my backwater moaning about the fact that nobody knows who I am, if I'm not doing anything to help them find me. So I am going to do more promotion on myself. And I realize also I've been somebody that's been very distracted in my life by other people. I've let other people distract me, and now I feel that I have to concentrate and close my world down a little bit so that I'm not so available to people, because that's always been my way. I've always been generous with my time, and I don't have so much time anymore. Time is my most precious thing now. And I have got a family that I want to concentrate on, and some really good friends that I'll give some quality time to. But I don't want to be available for so many people. And when I know that there's stuff that I must do.
Sure. So I'm very grateful that you're giving me, 2 hours of your time to.
Oh no, you're important to me. Important to me. Yeah, you've got listeners. I want to reach them. So, this is exactly the sort of thing I'd like to be doing, Claudio. There's no doubt about it.
Thank you.
Doing this rather than having coffee, going out for dinner, going to the pub, all of those sort of daily distractions, giving your energy to people just to go for chat, No, it's got to be practical now. I've got to wise up and be practical.
All right, good for you. In '79, you provided vocals for the Steve Howe album. I think it was "Look Over Your Shoulder." Man, that's another. You were moving up in the world, man. Kim Crimson, Procol Harum, Steve Howe. Wow.
I know. It's incredible, isn't it? Well, that all came about because I was friendly with the whole group of Yes, but mainly Alan White. Alan White, the drummer of Yes, was my dear, dear friend.
Yeah.
And he and his girlfriend Laurie and myself, well, I'd shared a flat with Alan before she came along. And of course, I was slightly in love. Well, I was in love with Alan. Everybody was. He was so handsome, so talented. And again, another humble person, just generous, kind, sweet, adorable, absolutely adorable. And then, of course, he introduced this. He came. Well, there was nothing between Alan and I. It was just like love from afar sort of thing. And he was really fond of me as well because I was from the north where he's from. I was, young and sweet and cute, and I used to make him laugh. And so we shared a flat together, and then he introduced me to this beautiful Californian called Rory Flynn. And then we all became friends and shared a flat for many years. And I used to do all the cooking because Rory didn't like to cook. So, but I wanted to learn to cook. So they used to go and buy. I remember Alan had this country house in Oxfordshire, and we'd drive down there for the weekends, and we'd always go to the butcher and buy a piece of roast beef, and I'd marinate it in herbs and cook it, and it was great. We had a fantastic time in those days. But there was one classic dish because of Steve Howe mainly, Yes decided to become vegetarian. So Alan became vegetarian as well. But I wasn't a vegetarian, and neither was Rory. But Rory was also American and didn't understand about British food. So she said, "Okay, Claire, Alan wants shepherd's pie for supper tonight when he's rehearsing. When he comes in, will you make a shepherd's pie?" And I said, yes. She said, well, half of it will have to be beef, and the other half of it will have to be soya protein. I went, no problem. She said, the other thing is, I want it to be in a pie. I said, what do you mean? Because shepherd's pie is minced beef and carrots and onions with a layer of mashed potato on the top and some cheese. That's how we make it. And she went, no, I want pastry. I said, you don't have pastry in shepherd's pie. She said, well, why is it called pie then? I said, it's just the name for it. So I had to make a pastry base, and half of it had soya protein, and half of it had minced beef, and then cover the top with mashed potato. It was a very eccentric supper that night. It really was. But yes, it was because of my friendship with Alan that I knew the members of Yes, and I used to go to their parties and go to the gigs, and so when Steve made his solo album, Alan played drums, and I'm sure Alan suggested that I sing on it, and Steve said, "Yeah, that'd be a great idea." So I ended up singing "Look Over Your Shoulder." Yeah.
Wow.
Good song. Yeah.
Good for you. Then in the 80s, you end up working with Wishbone Ash in several albums, and Just Destined, I think, A Number the Grave and Bare Bones, and so on. Feel free to elaborate how was like to work with these people.
That was that was my first inclusion in a proper rock band, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been around rock musicians for all of my then professional life, but I became part of that band, and that was because my manager had gone to live in America to manage Tom Petty,
Yep.
and he left me behind in England. He didn't really want to take me. I was too much. Well, I wasn't successful. I wasn't making any money. Punk music had happened. And I think he just thought I was going to be a bit of a liability if he took me to America. He'd have to pay for me, and I wasn't his girlfriend, and I might cause complications because of that. And he wanted to be free to manage Tom without any encumbrances. So he said, well, look, go and see John Sherry. He's a good manager. I know him. He's a decent guy. And so I did. I went to see John Sherry, and he managed Wishbone Ash. So John offered to help me, and he brought me into the band to do some backing vocals. And I ended up doing a bit of writing with them, mainly with Laurie Wisefield. We wrote a song together called Living Proof, which became one of their anthems for a while. And it's still one of their favorite tracks to perform. So the fans love it. And the fact that I co-wrote it with Laurie has meant that my name has always been attached to the band. They weren't, funnily enough, the band was split about whether I should join or not, because Andy Powell and Martin Turner were keen to have me because of the success of Fleetwood Mac, because Fleetwood Mac had reinvented themselves with two girl singers. Oh, and so they thought maybe including a girl singer in the band was a good idea. But Steve Upton and Laurie Wisefield wanted it to remain very much a male-sounding band, and the other genre that was coming through then was a heavy metal genre in rock music, and they preferred to go down that route and make it heavier rather than sweeter. So, and the fans were divided too. I think actually the fans weren't that keen on me, but they were keen on me from the point of view that I was the sexy little thing that, danced around the stage and added that kind of new dynamic to the band. But the funny thing was I was dancing too much. I was dancing too much. And Steve Upton took me to one side after the gig and said, look, Claire, I don't know how to tell you this, but you move around too much on stage. He said, just stand still a bit more and sing, okay? Don't stop jiggling around so much. And I was so shocked, because the truth of the matter was, the music was so amazing. I was there in front of a drum kit, bass, two guitars, blasting away.
Yeah.
What else am I going to do apart from dance? It was just amazing. I couldn't help myself to just stand there like a statue and just be sort of cool. I've never been a cool person. I'm not cool. I'm emotional. I've got Irish blood. We jig, we party, we have fun. We let ourselves get taken over. Oh, so no, I was absolutely downhearted by that. What? Calm down? Calm down? How can I calm down? Oh, it was so funny. So, yeah, that was, but there was one night we were in Birmingham and 5 guys jumped on stage to kiss me. 5.
Wow.
And 5. And there were all these sort of roadies in the wings that just rushed on the stage and bundled them off. And I was absolutely glowing. I thought, this is fantastic. But in the audience was an American agent. And as soon as he saw this, he went, wow, Wishbone Ash have reinvented themselves. So he booked us for an American tour. Now, the problem was I had one song in the set, which was a song that I'd written for my brother called Danny Don't Go. And it was about me telling my younger brother, who was in the army, not to go and fight in Northern Ireland, which was happening. The army were in Northern Ireland. I didn't want him to go. He actually was there. And it was a controversial song. So we get to America, and they've dropped the song from the set. Not only that, I was having problems with the stage manager. Was, a woman that was looking after the band, and she was very jealous of me. And she put them on a pedestal, and I was just down there like a nothing. And she used to make me feel quite awkward and unappreciated. So I wasn't looking forward to touring with her. And then when we get to America, they've dropped my one solo from the set. They said, well, we can't do it, Claire. It's too controversial. I said, well, it's the only song I do. And besides, why not be controversial? Speak about the IRA and the British Army. It really was an anti-war song. It wasn't that controversial. It wasn't. It was that Danny, don't go to Ireland. If you go to Ireland, they'll teach you to kill. That was the refrain. It's a very deep song. I occasionally do still sing it. My youngest brother that I wrote it for, of course, he wants me to sing it every now and again. I'll sing that song you wrote for me, and I have to sing it because, for his sons, he's got a couple of sons. But no, then what happened was I was newly married. So I'm calling my husband saying, oh, you're not going to believe it. They've dropped my song. I don't have a solo anymore. And he said, right, I'm on the next plane. So he flew to New York. I'm in the hotel. He arrives. He said, I'm just going for a meeting with Steve Upton. So I went, okay. So half an hour later, he came back. He says, I punched him. Pack your bags, we're leaving. So I went, did you what? He said, I punched him. We got in a fight. And so I went, oh my goodness, but you were meant to smooth things over, not. And so that was it. I had to leave because, well, you did what your husband. I did what my husband told me. I didn't really know what had happened, to be honest. But yeah, there'd been a fight, and I was flying home and leaving the boys in the lurch. And there was that was. I'm trying to think. So I think that was before the sound check for the gig that night in New Jersey somewhere. Oh, anyway, those 15 years I didn't speak to the band. They didn't speak to me for 15 years until it was their 30-year anniversary. And Andy Powell got in touch and said, would you like to come along to our 30-year anniversary show? No, it wasn't quite that, was it? It was before then. But it was coming up to their 30-year, and they invited me. That's it. They had an Ash Fest, which was a festival of Wishbone Ash in Rotherham, and they invited me there to go along to that, and we patched it up. But 15 years is a long time yeah, I know, incredible. And I felt terrible about what I'd done because, I'd left them all in the lurch, and the agent too. He booked the tour with me involved, and then I just wasn't there. Terrible, really, very unprofessional. The marriage didn't last, but the friendship with Wishbone Ash has.
All right, good for you.
Actually, I'm still friends with my ex-husband as well. So I saw him yesterday. Took him a bottle of port for Christmas, a little present. So we're still friends. Yeah, I mean it's not a good idea to make enemies of people. It's not a good idea. Sometimes it's inevitable. If somebody hurts you too deeply, you have to just say, right, that's it. That's it. And if they're not, if they're people that you weren't that close to anyway. But yeah, Wishbone Ash. That was a really good part of my life.
Good
Great.
For you.
Good. Yeah.
In 1980, you got a new single called, I think, The First Night in New York, which got favorite reviews. Feel free to elaborate on your forum group, The Transporter, I believe it was, right? So feel free to elaborate on that as well.
Yes, The First Night in New York. Good song.
Oh, yeah.
Good song. Although I did perform it on tour in England And just for artistic license, this is my first night in New York. This is my first night in LA, second verse. Then this is my first night in Berlin. So in this, there was, this is my first night in Berlin. I feel like song and sex and sin. My passions steadily rise and fall and climb right over Stalin's wall. Well, I got a letter from a priest or from a vicar. I think he wrote to the record label saying how disappointed he was to hear that I could possibly sing about sinning, and how disgusting that was. And I was very tongue in cheek in those days. But of course, I've gone back to the church now. You know, I'm a godbotherer. That's what my friend calls me. That's his funny name for people who go back to church. And so I have been like this about singing the song about singing about. So I feel like song and sex and sin, because actually I don't want to sin anymore. I want to be a good girl now. So I don't really think I should sing that song anymore. How about that? Isn't that funny? Yeah, but yes, it's artistic license to ride with Berlin. Yeah.
We change over time, and the world change around us. So we need to adapt, accommodate, and that's the way of life, I suppose.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm closer to the grave. Of course, I want to go back to church. That's what people laugh about. Oh, I know why you've gone back to church, because you're old now. I mean, yes, exactly. I've learned a few things.
That's right.
I think, in your old age, you do look back and you think, oh, why did I do that? Oh, how could I have done that? Oh, golly. Yeah, thank goodness I've reached an age where I can look back and think, oh, maybe not. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. But, I mean, it's a life, isn't it? It's a life like any other, really. It's been a wild ride. It really has. Yeah, it's not over yet, Claudio. It's not over yet. It's not over yet either.
Come on, you have another 50 years to go, man.
Yeah.
You put out there.
Who knows?
You may fall in love again. I don't know.
Oh, I hope so. I'm falling in love already, darling. Yeah.
Right.
I'm big. Yeah. No. Yeah. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Yes.
Yeah, of course. As you get older, I suppose, all of us, right? So we need a person to grow old with and to talk to. It's important to have somebody. The kids leave the house, they go away, and you wanna come home and somebody cook for you or pick you up for a doctor appointment, or buy you some flowers once in a while and be nice, and it's important.
Absolutely.
That's what human beings are all about, right? To be in.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. I mean, I would say that there are things about living alone that I do enjoy, but I realised that I do want to live with somebody, because until 2 years ago, my brother used to come and visit. One of my brothers who lived abroad used to come and spend a couple of months here in the summer with me, and I really enjoyed having him around. And it was that, he'd go and do the shopping, I'd do the cooking, he did the washing up, because he was fastidious about washing up, and I'm just casual, Oh, that'll do, He washes everything twice. So I went, fine, you do the washing up. That's great. And then we'd sit and we'd try and find a program that we both wanted to watch on TV together, which wasn't so easy. I told my friends, we ended up watching YouTube videos of canal boats, people that live on canal boats and go up and down the canals in England. And we watched 219 of them. Oh my goodness, that was funny. Yeah, it is. I love my brothers so much. They're so adorable. They're so adorable. Yeah. And so, yes, I know it's easy to live with a man. Definitely.
Yeah. In 1981, you appeared in the Jon and Vangelis album, The Friend of Mr. Cairo. And that's another big deal, man.
Yeah, it's true. It's another fantastic album, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Amazing people. Vangelis, what a guy. Well, John Anderson, amazing writer, beautiful melodies. But Vangelis, meeting Vangelis was really something. I was touring with John. I was supporting John on tour. And the last night of the tour was at the Royal Albert Hall. And Vangelis came along to the gig. And afterwards, we all went out to dinner.
Wow.
And then we all went round to Vangelis's flat for a jam. Can you believe it? We all went to his apartment for a jam. And it was so incredible, to be there next to the piano. There's Vangelis playing the piano, and I'm singing along. I can't remember what we were singing to, but yeah, what a guy! What an amazing composer and magical person. Yeah, fantastic man.
Yeah, he died. Really, he died recently, and
he did. Yes, he
very
did.
Very famous guy. I wish I had known you at the time, so I would have hang around with you guys, for dinner, a beer or something.
Yeah. Well, I didn't get to know Vangelis any more than that. Although there was, funny, another connection was that I was invited by a piano player called Jean Roussel, who played with Cat Stevens. I was invited to meet Demis Roussos, who of course had worked with Vangelis in Aphrodite's Child.
That's right.
I went along to the studio to meet Demis Roussos, and then I ended up going to Paris to do some songwriting with John for Demis Roussos, which I don't think anything happened of that. But that was another Greek connection. I love Greece, actually, and I love the Greeks. They're really, really cool people. Yeah, I think Greece is a country I could live.
Really? Yeah, a lot of people say that. Never been there.
I like the climate and the music and the people and the food. Oh, France is amazing. The whole world is amazing. Yeah, I'll probably never really leave England though, because of my ties to my country. Who knows? And I don't really think it's wise to have too many buildings around the world that you've got to look after. It's just expensive, and it's adding another layer of worry to your life, isn't it? Really? No, you just need one little house. Yeah, that'll do.
Absolutely. In '83, you recorded a cover the Ginny Pitney's, and 24 Hours from Tulsa. And feel free to elaborate. I think that didn't do that well on the radio, I think.
The Moon is a Powerful Lover did very well. Yeah. And I ended up working with a chap called Richard Niles.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure. I think it was because he'd been working with Morrissey Mullen.
Correct.
And they were on my ex-husband's record label. So he did a version of 24 Hours from Tulsa, which I sang on, and we made a video of it, which was like meant to be like Dallas with a split screen. And the idea was that I was the girlfriend of a sugar daddy who was an oil baron, and I'd met some cowboy in a bar on the way to Tulsa, and ended up running away with him. But the video is really funny because I had to dance on one spot, because I suppose we spent the whole budget hiring a famous actor to be the sugar daddy. I can't remember his name now. He's a famous Irish actor. It was made in Ireland, the video, and then I didn't think that the cowboy that I'd run away with was handsome enough, and that's because we couldn't afford the budget for a handsome actor, so we had to have the producer. And so there were two producers, so we had one of the producers. And then I'd gone back to England, and they'd inserted a scene of where I'm meant to be going into the bedroom, but it wasn't me going into the bedroom. It was another girl, and her legs were fat. And I went, no, they've used the girl with fat legs instead of my lovely slender one. That's not fair. I remember being really, really upset with the video. Oh, no, my goodness me. The things that you... No, that's not me. How could they do that? Why couldn't they choose somebody that had some lovely legs? That poor girl. Her legs were fine, actually. They just weren't my legs. But that was funny. Yes, 24 Hours from Tulsa. I suppose I was trying to reinvent myself as pop. I don't know. Either way, it didn't work. And then punk. No, punk had already happened, hadn't it?
Yeah.
That's right. Punk had already happened because my ex-husband had made his fortune during punk. I mean, he was their label was more or less a sort of punk label. But they discovered Gary Newman, and that made them a massive amount of money.
Yeah.
They were very successful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then in the 80s, you reinvent yourself as a new age artist.
Yes.
You did a lot of commission work for the BBC, Channel 4, an famous album called Touch Paper. Later on, My Voices, the BBC One. Feel free to elaborate on that.
Well, Nick, ex-husband Nick, had gone to a music business convention in New York, and while he was there, he discovered New Age music. Well, at the time, he had a label within the Beggars Banquet umbrella called Coda, and he was selling instrumental music, jazz. Morrissey Mullen was a case in point, and various other artists. And he thought if he made a New Age album, he might be able to promote the artists a little bit better. But he wanted something that was more of a flagship, more typically New Age. And he didn't have any music already created. So he asked me if I would make a New Age album. And I said, well, how do I do that? And he said, just use your voice. Just create an album just of your voice. And as a songwriter, I went, well, okay, I'll try. And I had to come up with a format. So I came up with the idea of making it around the 4 seasons. Excuse me. And then went into the studio. And what I'd done was I'd taken melody and layered up the voices, and also written it out in a way as I knew which bit was going where. Like, for instance, one of the most popular tracks is Leaf Fall, which I've discovered. But that's one of the most popular tracks on the Voices album. And it was making one voice go da, da, while the other one went da, da. And so it was like they were all counterpoint to each other. So I had to, write the music. So you record one note, and then you'd have that same voice doing another note further down on the tape, and then again later, and then you go into a different track and put another voice as the second note, and then you'd have another voice as the third note. So it was all counterpointing each other, and that wasn't the first track that I did. The first track that I did was Awaken Lark Rise. And I'll never forget going into the studio and the engineer saying to me, "This is fantastic." And I went, "No, don't be silly. No, it's not." And he went, "No, it's fantastic. It's unique. I've never heard anything like this before." And I went, "Well, it's got no words in it." And he went, "No, I know, it's amazing." And I went, no, you're just saying that. And I carried on and made the album. It took 6 weeks to make the album, which was unheard of. I'd always taken months to do an album before, because it was all organising musicians and rehearsing and getting them in and da-da-da. so many other people were involved. This time, it was just all me. I just went in, laid all the tracks down. We got what's that amazing device that captures your, well, I can't remember the name of it now, something electronic. And of course, samplers had just been invented. So I bought a sampler and I sampled my voice into it and used that as well. As we used it as texture, a sort of percussive texture. And I sampled the sound engineer's voice as well. And he actually got to sing on one of the tracks, which was called Moss, which was, I did 2 tracks, one with some German words in it and one with some French words in it, but the words were very bare. And the rest of the album was just pure vocal sound. There's no words at all. But it created quite a stir. And yeah, I mean, to this day, people are still using it. I still get calls and, messages. Can I use it on this? Can I put it on my film? Can I do this? Can I do that? And yeah, sure. Yeah. It was a wonderful project and brought me a great deal of acclaim at the time. So it was the one thing that got me a serious amount of recognition in a kind of artistic way, which had escaped me up till that point. And I think from then on, I think my music was taken a bit more seriously. And the follow-up album was Love in the Afternoon, and that was well received as well. But then the marriage started to go wrong, so after that I didn't make another album for some time. There was quite a long gap actually. Yeah, I was recording in my own studio at home, but I didn't release anything. But I was a mom. I was trying to hold my family together, trying to get over the breakup of my marriage, trying to survive, really. It wasn't an easy time, but that's what life is like. It's the rough and tumble. It creates you. It creates a character that you have to go through, things that shape you and deepen you. So just one of those things. But Voices was a fantastic project to get involved in. Yeah.
Well, absolutely. And I think you end up collaborating in a bunch of music videos. I think they're called The Art on Landscape, shown in the 90s. Right. I think the 1990s.
Yeah.
It was very popular at the time in some channels in the UK. Channel 4, I think.
That's right. Yes, we were on. That was Nick's project. He had the idea of bringing classical music and instrumental music, putting it to landscape footage and streaming it digitally, and also it was on terrestrial television as well. So he was a bit ahead of his time actually, because that's when he went into satellite television, and satellite dishes just weren't popular. Nobody really had them. He was just a bit too ahead of his time. So landscape did work, and it was a format without any adverts, so it had to be funded by subscribers, and that was tricky also. So the idea was great. But I think there's still, you can still get landscape videos, and they're still beautiful. Yeah, and I've got some of the landscape CDs that I play in the car on my CD player, because I've got an old Honda, which I love, and I play CDs in that. But yeah, that was a very interesting time, the landscape series. Yeah.
When you are driving from whatever, point A to point B, you like to bring CDs into the car and listen to your own stuff and somebody else's music as well? Huh?
Yeah, I like to. At the moment, I'm listening to Cara Dillon and a bit of Chopin, because I'm driving my grandson around a lot, He's 3, and I look after him 1 day a week. And from the time he was able to, 2, I suppose.
Yeah.
I put Chopin over him, and I mean, it's wonderful, you know. Oh, it's very uplifting. But of course, I think it develops children's brains, doesn't it? Classical music, because of the amount of notes. It's very mathematical about how the number of notes and the sequences, and so you're not listening to words really. So your brain is developing in a different way. But he's not really. I've got him a little guitar for Christmas. He's not really interested in music too much yet. He's just obsessive about cars,
really?
As all little boys are. He's only 3. Yeah. But I hope I sincerely hope he learns to play the piano, or the guitar, or the drums, or the bass. His father plays bass. Yeah. And my daughter Susanna plays guitar, so hopefully he'll be a musician.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah. I mean, you around, will help out a lot.
Oh, Grandma, I'll be there. Yes. But yeah, you can't have a chocolate biscuit unless you can play an A.
That's right. That's right.
That's what I'll do. But I've just thought of that, because he came round yesterday, and he knows where the biscuits are. And he said, he always takes my hand. He says, I take my grandma's hand, and then and he takes me into the kitchen, and he stands in front of where the biscuits are. Oh, terribly indulgent I am. I shouldn't give him chocolate biscuits.
No, that's all right. Christmas. You gotta be happy, man. I mean, you gotta live your life like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah. No wonder he likes coming to Grandma's for the biscuit. But yeah, I'm going to say, right, no biscuits unless you can play an E.
That's right. He needs to work for it,
Yeah, he needs to work for it. That's right. He does. Yeah.
Since 2013, you have been a member of a jazz tribute band. Feel free to elaborate on that, how that came about.
Well, I mean, apparently Max Hunt said he'd invited me to join Fragile some years earlier, and I'd said no. But when he got in touch with me, I said yes this time, because I had the time and the inclination. But the secret was, because I'd known Yes so well, I thought I knew the music. I didn't study Yes. I heard, I absorbed the music because I was around them, but I didn't sit and listen over and over again to the albums. When I came to learn it, oh my God, it was so difficult. What have I done? What have I done? I couldn't understand it. Oh, the time signatures were weird, and when do I come in? Oh, it was hard work, and the songs themselves, the lyrics often didn't make sense. And when I write this, I write in a sort of a linear way, that there's a beginning and end, and it's a story a lot of the time. Or if it's not a story, I think it was easier. But this music was complex. Wow. So, but I stuck at it. And I must admit, the challenge of it, when I eventually did the gig where I didn't make any mistakes, the feeling, it was fantastic. But it took about 6 years. 6 years.
Wow.
Before I did a gig with them, where I didn't make a mistake. And then as soon as I get good, Dirk, I've mastered it all, I've learned all the songs, Max moves to Germany. And then that was it. But we did decide to make some albums together. So I've continued to work with Max and the rest of the band on the albums. we put out 2 albums, 2 prog albums, and it's been a very interesting project. I've enjoyed it. Yeah.
Let's talk about your latest album. Feel free to elaborate. It was done during the pandemic. It's very good actually. It's you're getting better with age.
I think I am, Claudia. I think I am.
But
I'm like an old violin. Yes. I'm loving the work. I just, I get the ideas. Sitting, in the evening, I pick up the guitar, find a little tune pops into my head, or I'll just be watching TV and a tune will come in, and I'll go, right, where's the phone? Get the voice recorder, record the little snippet.
Yeah.
And when I'm ready to go into it, but I mean, for instance, I took a train. I went to visit my daughter, and I took a train, and it was an hour and a half writing lyrics without any tune. Lovely pink person in pink walks out of the station and down to the park, ready to meet a nice man that she thinks will be ready to take her to somewhere to leave a sweet mark on her memory of pleasure. And things like this. He meets and he greets her and sweeps her, and she's not aware that somewhere he's broken, that he was forsaken and left with a token, not of his making or choosing, but left with the memory of losing, a clumsy sensation. And yes, though he sweeps her, he keeps up his guard. A lovely pink person has no recollection of loving being ever this hard, for as she comes closer, he relishes their time spent apart.
That's right. Wow.
And so that's on a train. And so I've got that I can go to, when I'm ready to make some music again. And the snippets of songs that are on my phone, there's tons of them. And I'll just go through them and go, that one's good. I want to develop that. And that one's nice. So yes, Claudia, I'm hitting a seam now. I'm hitting a seam of because I've got the time, and the desire, which is fundamental. But first of all, I've got to write the book before I do any more music, because I've just got to get it done. It's like one of those things that you've given yourself to do. You've promised yourself you'll do it. You have to do it.
Well, you can write some of a book. Hopefully this interview one day will help you, because I'm revisiting your life. So I remember talking to Claudia about this, about that, or this, who will help you. But in terms of writing a book, you can have like the main ideas, right? And then hire like a ghost writer or somebody who can fill in the holes and then put it together.
I might get
easy for me to say, but I don't know how long that will take.
I think I'll get somebody to edit rather than write it.
Yeah.
Because I think I want the pleasure of it. I want the pleasure of writing it myself. I think it'll mean more. And, having it edited by somebody that cares about you and cares about how you come across, because you might not know yourself how you're coming across. You might think you're being very honest and deep, and it might come across that you're being very shallow. It might seem that you might be doing something that on the surface you're taking completely wholeheartedly and being honest about, but it will be taken badly by the person reading it. They'll think you're being, proud or something like that. So I will get somebody to edit it for sure. I did make a songbook with some anecdotes in it, and the experience was great. I made 75, and I've only got 2 left. I won't print any more. I'll make so that they're collector's pieces for people one day. But that was just about the last album, Over Dark Apples. And that was really, really good experience. But they're not cheap to make if you include other people. The person did all the design work for me. There's a couple, and they offered to do it for nothing. But when I approached them and said, "Oh, I'd love to do another one," and they said, "Well, we do normally charge £250 a day. You do know that, don't you?" And we went, "Oh, I see. Oh, right, okay." So I did then have to, take myself in hand. So I won't do a songbook just yet, but I will do an autobiography because that won't cost me anything. It'll just be words and a few pictures, and eventually get that out. That's what I'm going to be doing.
I think you're going in next month, January, February. You're going to be doing some gigs around where you live, right?
Yes, I am. I've got 3 gigs booked in a hotel restaurant that's it's about half an hour's drive away, and I did one and I loved it. The people were very, very quiet and very respectful and enjoyed my performance. Otherwise, I wouldn't probably. I'm not restaurant fare really, because my songs are too tender to have people clattering and chatting and ignoring me. I won't do that. I have to have attention, because I'm a diva. Don't you? I am. So I'm proud. So I don't just, but I've been invited to do it, and I like being invited to do things. And so I said, yes, I'll do that. So I've got those little gigs. And then I'm going up north to do a gig in May. And that's more of a theatre club setting, ticketed. And so that will be in May. And in between, I have been invited to sing in Japan.
Wow.
But unfortunately, I'm looking forward to that. Unfortunately, the agent said he doesn't want to book any tickets until the war in Ukraine is over, so I don't know when that's going to happen. Oh dear me!
Hopefully, one day will be over.
It will be over, and they'll agree on something that they could have agreed on months and months earlier, whilst some people were still alive. It's just awful. It's awful that we have to live in a world where this is still going on. It's not fair. It's not fair to the world. I don't know whether people say about AI, whether AI would kill us all, or maybe AI would say, right, that's it, no more wars. We're not having any more wars. It's not practical. We need a peaceful world, and this guy here is corrupt, by the way, so we're not having him doing the negotiating. He's going to have to go to an island and live there out his days. We won't put him in prison. We'll bring, he can have the internet and blah, blah, blah. But you're not going to be doing any deals, mate, because you're corrupt. And we know that. I can tell because I've been programmed to look at all your micro, how we have all those micro things about us that give us true feelings away, and all these behavioral scientists now can look at slowed down footage of people and see if they're lying or not, that sort of thing. All those robots will know whether we're lying, won't they? So they'll say, no, this negotiation is over, you're lying, out you go. Won't that be funny? Maybe it'll be a better world with AI. But I don't want the surveillance that they're all saying that they're going to bring in, and that terrible ID thing where the government has everything about you, all your bank accounts, all your contacts, your whole life, your medical thing. And if you're a dissident and you disagree with them, shut down, like they did in Canada to the truckers. Oh my goodness me, wake up, people. We've got to be careful.
Yeah.
Haven't we, Claudia?
Well, the whole internet knows everything about all of us. I mean, everything we type and our picture, movement, emails. That's what Google works, trying to find somebody and the closest between two people, or trying to get it's too much information out there about ourselves. That's what we, with social media, Facebook,
Yeah,
Instagram, and people post everything they ever done, which is good and it's
yes,
bad.
and yeah. Well, it's bad when, for instance, you're going for a job or you want to stand for Parliament, and they say, "Oh, actually, in 15 years ago, you tweeted that that you thought Jewish people were blah 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 blah." You know what I mean? That sort of thing with people, or you joined a heavy right-wing organisation for this, and
Yeah,
you were a member of the Communist Party. All those things that they find out about you. I don't think people should be held to ransom for the stuff that they did in their past, though. That's stupid, because that's like saying that people don't change, and we do change. We grow. We become more intelligent. Right.
But there's some laws in Europe where I think they're called the right to be forgotten or something like that, where in the people in the 20s or 30s, you say this or they say that, or you broke up with a boyfriend like was left wing or right wing or this or whatever. But people, like you say, change over time, and you should have the right to, delete that email maybe, or delete that post or that Twitter or whatever it was, right? Yeah. Here in the United States, there are more movement towards that. They're giving more freedom to people to erase.
Well, there are people in the United States right now, because of Elon Musk. I bet they do wish that they could have deleted things that they've.
Now with Elon Musk and tweaking over Twitter, I don't know. I don't use social media that much. I just a little bit of posting for the interviews, and I upload the interview to the channel for people to enjoy music. But I try to keep
me too.
My private life as private for
it's just another. It becomes another thing that you feel that you have to do to promote yourself. Which,
unfortunately, that's the world that we live in, with cell phone and social media, people checking Facebook. People are addicted. There are 2 hours of Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or this or that, and I don't like to live in that world. I'm happy I don't live in that world. So.
Yeah, I don't live in that world either. I'd rather be doing things than talking about them. Except in this case, I definitely want to talk about my music, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity that you've given me.
I'm grateful that you have given me the opportunity. 2 more questions. Looking back in your musical career in your life, what moment are special to you? Any regrets or things you have done differently?
Ooh, regrets. I've had a few, but then again, too few to mention. No.
That's good. That's a good answer.
I don't think I do have any regrets. I regret that I couldn't keep my marriage going. I'm somebody that was a bit of a coward. My father was a very angry father, and so he made me a bit. I'm more like my mother. My mother was a bit more cowed, a bit more. She did well with him, but she didn't stand up to him a great deal. And I don't stand up to people very well. And I think I should have stood up to my ex-husband more. And I think if I had, we might be together. But because I didn't speak my mind. I'm one of these people, unfortunately, I know that about myself now, that in the past, when things have hurt me, or I've been angry about things, I've internalized them. I haven't said anything. I've just taken it. Because I think that's how I was brought up. My dad used to say, if you don't stop crying, I'll hit you. So you just go, oh, okay. So you keep your feelings in. And that's not right. I mean, I used to let my kids cry. If they were upset, they cried. If they were angry and being, silly and naughty, I just do what my mother used to do. I just bundle them out of the room. and they didn't want to be separate from me. If you say, no, you must go away from me because you're being outrageous, that's how I handled my kids.
Sure.
And then, you get a little, Mummy, I'm sorry, can I come back in? I went, yeah, of course, come in. But with my father, no, he made me keep my feelings in. And that was wrong, because I should have let them out. I should have said more during my relationship with my ex-husband and with my ex-partner, I should have stood up for myself. I should have said when I was angry, said when I was upset,
Absolutely.
said when I was bound. Because otherwise, how can that person live with you? How can they learn to know what you like and you don't like? It was stupid of me. Yeah, stupid.
Yeah, I understand. Feel free to elaborate of where the listeners and viewers of the interview can buy your music and
well, they can download it online. They can listen. They can go to YouTube and listen. They can purchase CDs from me through my, just message me through my website. They can buy this latest album from Cherry Red Records.
Yeah.
They can buy vinyl from Renaissance Records, based in Arizona. They like vinyl.
Yeah.
Listen, enjoy your life. I hope that you can add my music to your collection, dear listeners. That would make me feel really, really good. It's nice to have spent this bit of time with you all.
Absolutely, and it was such a pleasure for me talking to you, and it was very nice talking to you. You are a very humble and nice person, a great musician. Came out of, I don't know, maybe poor family, Catholic school, and then you looking back at your life now. If you go back and say, man, I have played with the best of the best. From that venue, small venues, big venues, and all the names that we mentioned during the interview, those are big names. So you should be very proud of yourself. And we all do stupid stuff, me included. And but you have a good life, and you have a successful career, play with the best bands in the world, and you have, I don't know, like 20 or 25 CDs out there. You did a lot of videos, and should be proud of yourself, man. You manage to do well. You raise your kids on your own, and let's look back and be happy, man. Be happy. I'm happy every day, man. Be thankful and
absolutely. Absolutely. I am happy every day. I'm grateful. I'm grateful for waking up. Thank you, God.
And we are alive. We didn't die during COVID. So that's a blessing.
Yes, that's right.
All right, Josephine. Claire Hamill. It was very nice talking to you, and I we'll be in touch very soon.
Great.
Thank you.
God bless.